Welcome to Keep It Clean for Happier You. I'm your host, Nikki Tamboulidis. Together with my guests, we will help you reclaim your space at home. Yes, you can. We're here to help. Stay with us. Welcome back. We are here with our guest professional organizers, Susan Lavallo from Clutter Solutions, Caroline Caldwell from Caldwell Evolution in Toronto, Canada, Matt Byer from Matt Byer Organizing, and we're talking how to let go of stuff. I'm going to give you a quote from Jeff Campbell from Clutter Control. Do you have under your kitchen sink cleaning products, including numerous miracle cleaners that you've never touched? We want you to put your house on a diet, not stuff your house into a griddle. I'm going to ask Susan to read the question from one of our listeners, Mrs. K from New York.
Here's Mrs. K's question. Living in a small apartment in the city, like to start clearing my paperwork and pictures. I'm an older person and don't want my children to go through my private things. How do I start? Where do I start?
Caroline?
So she's asking about how to get started with her paperwork and her pictures.
Yes.
And what I heard was that she's concerned about her family, presumably her executors or her powers of attorney, going through her personal things. So I would say if that's your biggest concern, like if that's where your mind is working and that's causing some concern for you, start with the things that are most distressing for you. Start with the things that are giving you the most anxiety and start bit by bit and try and work your way through a little bit at a time. The other thing would be with that is if this is problematic for you, take it out of context, take the paperwork out of context and sort it someplace like on the dining room table where it's completely out of context from your office or where you would normally keep the paper and keep only the essential pieces that would be needed to close off your estate and keep the memory.
Susan, your thoughts on Mrs. K?
So what I did for myself is, because I like to write, and so I wrote a book, as you know, but I also write stories and I journal. So the journaling is for me. It's how I figure things out. I write it down, and that's private. I don't want anyone to ever read that, but I do keep my journals because I go back and I look up things. So I have my journals in a box in a basement with instructions on it. And the instructions say, this is not for you to read. If you want to read things that I wrote, that's upstairs in my office. I tell them where that is. But these things in the journal, I don't want you to read them because I don't want you to think that I was sad in my life. Because I wasn't. I'm a happy person. I'm a joyful person. But in my journals, that's where I figure my things out. And if you read this, you might get the wrong impression of how I really felt every day.
And that's your private space. But I have a question. Do you think that somebody looking at the box would not, human nature, curiosity, get into the box just to read it? Because I think you're
the risk.
Yeah, it's a risk. In my opinion.
It is a risk.
It's like, don't look at the big white elephant somehow.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people that journal that get rid of their journals as they go along.
Yeah.
And I started to do that one day. I pulled out a journal. I said, I'm going to just leaf through them and get rid of them. And the first one I pulled out was my trip to Germany, like 30 years ago. And I started reading it. I'm like, oh, no, I can't get rid of this. It was like my experience, like so many things I would have forgotten if I didn't read that. So, right. So, professional organizers, we're like everybody else. We have sentimental things. We have things that we want to keep. Right. And things like this that, it's a struggle. Right?
So with Mrs. K, you're recommending?
So I'm recommending that she gives instructions or she leaves it with an attorney or someone like that who's really bound to fulfill her wishes.
And who really, chances are high, an attorney will not spend any time reading your diary or your journals.
Yeah. But they have a fiduciary responsibility to carry out your actions. It's the law. So,
Matt? Thank you, Susan.
As I understand the question, she needs to go through these and she has concerns about confidentiality. So I completely agree with what Carolyn and Susan said about the confidentiality part. as for going through them, my recommendation is get professional help from a professional organizer, because I promise you, organizers don't want to read your books, your notes. They just want to organize it. They're just going to get the basic information about dates and maybe categories, and they want to get through it as quickly as possible. They absolutely will have no interest in stopping to read. Place to go is napo.net, N-A-P as in professional, O.net. That's National Association for Productivity and Organizing Professionals. They have the NAPO Code of Ethics, which includes a clause about confidentiality. I'd also recommend looking for an organizer that is insured and bonded to
make sure that
yeah.
they handle your documents properly.
Yeah, exactly.
Because personal documents, we all have our little things in the closet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you want to make sure that they're kept in the closet.
Yeah. I can understand maybe family wants to read these. Professional organizers are professionals. They don't want to read it. They just want to help you.
I'm going to ask Matt to read this question from Stephen from Clinton, New Jersey.
Okay, Stephen says, my wife passed away last year. I'm sorry to hear that. I have two wonderful teenage daughters in high school. They have a hard time organizing their stuff and separating their clean clothes from the dirty ones. Think we need a bigger house. For now, can you recommend a purchase like a hutch to hide all their stuff? Hide, he used the H word. Okay.
Caroline, you're up.
Yeah, this is such a great question. To your caller, this question comes up over and over again. So a couple of things. First of all, the teenage years, I call them the toss and drop years of life, because people tend to toss and drop. Some people never grow out of it. Some people do. Teenage girls are notorious for tossing and dropping. Very few of them are meticulous. There's a few, but very few. However, about the hutch to hide, I would encourage you not to hide. The separation of clean and dirty is a really big issue, especially with those clothes, because the girls are cycling the clothes so fast. So what I would actually recommend is get those hooks that you can move and put them beside the closet, behind the door, on the wall, and encourage the girls to hang the clothes up. If they're not clean enough, to go back in with the clean clothes, and not dirty enough to go back into the laundry, so they're going to get used again. And then encourage the girls, perhaps on a weekly basis, to cycle through all of the clothes, laundry to the laundry, clean to the clean, but to use those hooks for the clothes that are in between. This question comes up so often. I actually did a whole blog post and a whole Instagram post on it. It is a really good question.
Okay, so the idea of him buying a new house is out. You're not recommending him to buy a hutch or a big house?
No.
Susan, your thoughts? Thank you, Caroline.
I mean, unless he wants a bigger house for other reasons, but not for this reason.
Yeah, it's so interesting that half the people that call me say their house is too small, that they need more space, they don't have enough closets. And the other half of the people that call me say their house is too big, they have too much space, they don't know how to use it. So in either situation, you could have stuff on the floor. The size of the house doesn't really make any difference. I mean, these are teenage girls, they're in high school, they're old enough to be responsible for their own clothes. I would say take them to the store, have them each pick out a hamper that they like, and just keep it in their bedroom. And then it's on them to start putting these dirty clothes in the hamper and just take care of their own clothes. Soon they're going to be in college or on their own, like they're going to have to figure this out. And if they don't, then they wear dirty clothes, and that's on them too.
I like that. I think that's how you're going to learn, because they go to school and they don't want to wear dirty, wrinkled clothes.
Yeah, especially girls.
Especially girls.
Clothing and everything. So yeah, make them completely responsible for it. And now it's not your problem at all; it's their problem.
Excellent, Matt. Thoughts?
Well, yes. One observation I've made in my 20 years of organizing is it doesn't take much to be a barrier. And what I mean by that is for the act of putting away clothes in a hamper, if it's a hamper with a lid located in the closet, where you also are supposed to put the clean clothes, and it's across the room from where you go to bed, that is competing with dropping it on the floor. Dropping it on the floor is going to win every time. However, if you've got a hamper, open top, right next to where you're going to bed, it is almost as easy to drop it in the hamper as drop it on the floor. And it makes a clear distinction just simply by location. I also want to make another point about a misperception about organizing, that it's about getting things in containers. Containers including like a hutch. And
To hide them.
To hide them, yeah. If you're hiding things, then you got to ask if this item's worth keeping. Sometimes the best container is no container at all. If it's something you want to have visible and accessible, you don't need to get it into the container. So my recommendation is make the hamper as open and easy to access as possible, and keep it completely separate from where the intended clean clothes are supposed to go.
I love that, and I'm going to add something else to what Matt is talking about. Buy a hamper. So many people don't have a hamper in the bedroom. Mm-hmm. Get a hamper for your teenage children, for yourself.
Yeah.
Because as a grown-up, I don't know about Stephen, and I'm sorry his wife passed away, sometimes it's a good idea because you're modeling to your children. And if I see people saying, Nikki, I don't know, I'm not a professional organizer. By professional, I am a professional cleaner. And so often people say to me, well, I don't know how to motivate my children. And I look in their bedrooms and it's a mess. Mm-hmm. So you have to be organized yourself to be an example to your children. Instead of buying hutches and big houses, you just...
Yeah. I would add to the hamper, make sure it's one that's easy to transfer to the next stage.
To the laundry room.
Because if it's like a big fixture, then
you have a problem.
It gets comfortable. The laundry takes up residence.
Yes.
You always have to be thinking in terms of the next step. Is it easy to put in? And what's the next step? Are we going to be able to move it to the
because some
laundry
people
room?
have a hamper built in their bathroom.
Well, we don't want it to be a piece of furniture.
Yeah, that's
it's more like a pop-up. So
Thank
you could have one that's for light colors, dark colors, medium.
Exactly.
So you
what
could
Matt,
have 2 or 3 of them. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I agree with Matt.
Exactly
have them
what Matt
open,
said.
easy to access.
You're listening to Keep It Clean for Happier You podcast. To listen anytime, go to dirtdirtgoaway.com. Also, you can live stream online at radio1400.am every Saturday. We have a question from John from Monroe, Connecticut. My sister-in-law is keeping everything of my nephews who passed away. I think we have a lot of passings here. His clothes, his bike, his car. My brother has a hard time looking at them around the house. It's been years. He's not specifying how many years. He asked her to let go, but she can't. Caroline, any thoughts?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is that she may actually need some professional help to deal with her grief.
I agree.
We can certainly deal with the stuff and help with strategies for shedding the stuff. Again, is there low-hanging fruit that can be targeted? But if it's been many years, dealing with the death of a child, I think I've never had to deal with it. Touch wood or anything else I can touch. But I think it would be very, very challenging, and perhaps some professional support to deal with the grief would be the first step, and then tackle the stuff after that. That would be my question. I'm not a professional trained to deal with grief, but that would be my first question, if that might be helpful to them. Have they considered that?
I want to add a little bit on this because I have a friend years ago. She lost her son. And she kept his clothes, which is really sad, in the trunk of her car, feeling that, in a way, he's with her every day. And they own a catering business, and her sister took the clothes, the bloody clothes, and threw them out. To this day, she hasn't talked to her sister. We're talking 10 years now. I find that very inappropriate that she did this, the sister. She didn't have the right, in my humble opinion, to throw the clothes of her dead nephews, because to the mother, that was how she connected with him. Susan, your thoughts?
So that brings up one of my golden rules of organizing: is you cannot throw away other people's things. It's on everyone to make their own decisions, their own choice about when they're ready to let go of things. So certainly, this situation, the things I've seen in people's homes is sometimes they create like a shrine for that person. So it could be that they have the bedroom that's completely intact. One of my questions about this question is, where is this stuff? Is he saying it's just in his bedroom, or, he left his bike in the garage and it can't move from that space in the garage?
Well, he's not specifying. He said his clothes, his bike, and his car, and the brother wants to let go of them.
I mean, I'm just wondering if they one at a time can take these things and try to contain it. So maybe if they want to keep all of his clothes, are they still in the laundry room where he left them, or can they just put them in a box and store them away someplace?
That you know where they are.
So that you still have them. It's like just bringing it to another stage of this letting go process.
I think what's going with Matt with stages, like, moving it along somehow.
Yeah.
Matt, your thoughts? Great points.
Yeah.
Susan, I love that part, that not to throw away other people's memorabilia, especially memories.
Especially
of your own
memorabilia.
child.
Especially,
that he had a tragic death, he had an accident, and the mom related to him with that. Matt?
Yeah, this is a tough one, and Caroline and Susan brought up some excellent points. What Caroline was saying about getting a therapist to help with this first makes a lot of sense to me, because I've worked on several projects with a therapist where the way I define the teaming up is we'll deal with the physical clutter and they will deal with the emotional clutter, because it sounds like that's what she's got the most of at this stage. I have another Peter Walsh story from Trading Spaces. There was one client who had a collection, a vast collection of eagles, because it was particularly important to her because she and her brother loved eagles and loved collecting eagles, like little, statuettes, little. They're like everywhere.
Tchotchke.
Yeah, tchotchkes. And she was saying, this was important from this event, this was for this, and this is from... And Peter Walsh said, if you want to soar like an eagle, you've got to get rid of all this clutter. And it's funny the way he says clutter and everything, but it's a great point that what does this represent to you? What is it you love about eagles? What was it you shared with your brother that was so special about your love for in this case eagles? But it's often good to have a conversation about what you're keeping and why, rather than saying what can we get rid of. It's like, what is so important about this? You have to be careful how you say it. You don't want to say, why are you keeping this? It's like, tell me about this. Talk to me about this car. What are your memories of this car? When did your brother get it? It's going to be far more informative than no, I'm not getting rid of it. Just ask for a story.
I have my last question of this whole segment is I'd like for you guys to share, because I shared mine with the books. Caroline, you go first. Your little hidden secret on your little clutter in your side of the world.
Well, I've got a collection
Caroline.
of yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, spill it.
I've got a collection of secrets. I had 2 boxes of letters from old boyfriends. I got rid of one. I still have one, and the one that I kept was because he's such an extraordinarily great writer. It's great reading. But the more I'm thinking about it, the more I think, oh my gosh, it was like such a long time ago. Like it's irrelevant now, and I've stopped rereading them. I struggle with things in my office, oddly enough. You know, you would think that an organizer, but I also struggle with books and I struggle with things in the office. And I'm staring at my office, not right now, I'm in my sister's, but been staring at the shelf of my office, and I have my accountability partner. I said, you know what, I'm going to hire you to come over and just help me purge this place because I just, it's starting to feel really heavy. The energy is getting really heavy.
Yeah.
And as a productivity coach, I just absolutely can't function in that environment. But probably the biggest thing for me is family history and memorabilia, especially family history. When my father passed, I ended up collecting a lot of the paperwork associated with the family. And he had his father's material, and it's all sort of come towards me. And my sister and I are trying to scan it so that we can digitize it into some sort of a book or something like that.
Yeah.
But that's probably the hardest piece for me to shed. Because for me, that history is so rich, and so many of us in North America have come from elsewhere, and that history is contained in some of that genealogy work and that history. We have letters from the First World War that were written from the front
Wow.
to about to be wives.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, and the other thing I found amongst those letters from the front, it turns out that my uncle, who fought in World War I, lived in the same house in a town in Ontario as the boyfriend that I kept some of those letters.
No kidding.
You should put
I
them
saw
next
the
to each other.
the address from the letter and the address from the uncle,
Wow.
and it was the same address. And it was a university town. They both attended the same university.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
crazy stuff. It makes it really hard to get rid of stuff like that.
Oh,
But you know what?
Caroline.
We all have to move forward. We all have to
I
move
know,
forward.
but just a suggestion about the ones with the World War sentiment. I would not scan them. I would frame like my favorite letter, just so I would, because I don't know. Susan, your thoughts? Thanks, Caroline. Excellent.
Well, I've already fessed up to my box of journals in the basement.
Yeah.
So,
We're coming to read them now.
So, in addition to that, I would say I'm what I call a workshop-aholic. I take a lot of workshops. I'm just a learner, and I've taken hundreds of workshops, and I have a really hard time getting rid of the notes, especially in the early years when I was changing careers and figuring things out and getting ready to launch my business, and like all that stuff like means so much to me because, you know, it takes a lot of bravery, as we all know.
Oh, you do.
To change careers and leave what you know and start something new. And so I have that. And then on the other end, I teach a lot of workshops. And I've been doing that for 24 years, and I have notes from every workshop I've ever taught because maybe I'm going to teach it again.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe I'm going to use that resource again. Or maybe
I teach,
maybe,
and I know how it is
Yeah,
because
it's
you have
very
to
hard to
prep,
get rid
you
of
have
that.
to get the material, you have questions. It's
Well, every one is a lot
Special.
of labor, right? They put a lot into every single one, even with our minimal quests. I mean, you know, we all put a lot of time into that. We do PowerPoints and show examples and stuff, and you know, now it's digital, so it's easier.
Are you considering scanning any of them?
You know, I have considered doing that. I have a wonderful scanning company that he picks up and drops off for
Wow.
about $100 a box, a banker's box. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah,
So,
I
yes,
need
that's
the
definitely a
name of
consideration.
that person.
Yeah, he's wonderful.
Yeah, because Caroline, I'm going to quote. I'm thinking about your father's and your grandfather's letters. I will not be able to get rid of them. I would not be able to scan them because feeling them, touching them, to me is something. But your boyfriend, your ex-boyfriend, like I don't know how many years ago, even though a good writer, yeah, I will let go of that, especially if you're married. I don't know if your husband gets offended over there.
He doesn't know that they're there, but you're absolutely right. You know, it's time to move on. In fact, that now that I've actually said it out loud, I think when I go home, I'll just shed them. But the family memorabilia is really, really hard for me.
It is.
Really hard.
And it matters. It's like museum quality. Matt, your thoughts?
A couple. There's you definitely have a lot of, I think, what I was just similar to what Susan's saying. I call career keepsakes. Like there's certain things I've accomplished, a lot of artwork. that is built up, or things that have been published I just can't quite let go of. But they're contained in flat files, and they don't get in my way, so it's not like interfering with my life. Something completely different. When I moved to Stamford, there was a lawyer in my networking group who talked about playing adult hockey, and there was a league in Stamford, and suddenly a childhood passion was reignited for ice hockey. I love everything down to the smell of the Freon ice. It gets me charged up, and I was going to come back to playing hockey, and I went online, went to Hockey Monkey, I think is the name of the site, and bought all new equipment, spent way more money than I should have on credit, and I played for one season, discovered I still had the skills but not the lungs for hockey. It was fun, but the reality was it was at night. I was always tired the next day, and it was anyway. Fast forward to I've got this duffel bag full of hockey equipment taking up space in my garage year after year, and I think the challenge I had with the idea of getting rid of it is, and we hear this a lot with clients, I'm sure you guys can agree, I spent a lot of money on it, so that's a hard reason to get rid of something. And also what it represented, it was, if I get rid of this, this is it. I'm no more hockey. For me, that's kind of like looking at the end of my life. It's like, let's admit that this part of your life is dead, and that's very hard. And I think that's what people associate stuff with. Turns out, there was years later learned of a girls hockey league that was looking for equipment donations, and there was a 6-foot girl that was able to take all my stuff away, and I felt really good about being able to provide that to somebody who needed it, and it was the right solution. And to be honest, I don't miss that duffel bag and the guilt that sort of came with it.
Excellent. Thank you. I wanted to spend a couple minutes for you guys to talk about your website and your book, or anything that you have done for our listeners. Caroline, you go first.
Yeah, so my website is caldwellevolution.com, and I provide productivity coaching, virtual organizing support. So I have clients all over that I support virtually. And I have created courses. I am supporting also up-and-coming entrepreneurs, so people who are just getting into the organizing business. That's how I got started with the courses, but also now other entrepreneurs who are looking to kickstart their business. So I have a CEO Kickstarter course, I have a marketing course, a planning one that I'll be relaunching in about 4 weeks' time. And I'm working on my 4th one, which is on social media, which is really, really fun.
Wonderful. So
no books. Haven't written any books yet.
Okay. Well, you will. It looks like. Caroline's website is caldwellevolution.com, and we're going next to Susan. We're going to post everything online, so you guys are not missing out. But just I wanted a quick Susan Lavallo. Please let us know your address, and I know you wrote a book. I read it.
Okay, so my website is cluttersolutions.com, and my book is called Happily Organized, Little Stories About My Mom, the Most Organized Person in the World. So the goal of that book is to teach people how to organize through storytelling. It's not a how-to step-by-step book. I thought of it more for people that are very creative and people that have ADD and ADHD that have a hard time learning in a linear process. So it's very lighthearted, but it gives lots of examples. And
I loved it.
People have told me that they're in the store and they say to themselves, well, what would Marion do, when they're thinking about buying something? And so I help people organize a whole array of things, like garages and attics and basements and clothes and kitchens and all that stuff. But I really specialize in finance and paperwork, I help people with bill payment systems, and
Utilizing your CPA background?
yes, I utilize my accounting background. And
Okay.
for some people, I just do it all for them, and other people, I teach them how to do it.
Wonderful. Matt?
Yeah, my mom was not the most organized person. It skips a generation. So I actually want to start by talking about my YouTube channel, Matt by Organizing on YouTube. During the COVID quarantine, I looked the other direction and started doing videos, and got a pretty decent following there on my YouTube channel. And it includes a series on downsizing for anyone who's downsizing. Lots of free advice on what to do. Lots of free advice on all aspects of organizing. My website is mattbaier.com, mattbaier.com, and on it you can download a free copy of my ebook, The Circulation Solution.
And could we also mention that we do a free Zoom class every month for Minimal Quest? What is is it minimalquest.com?
It's just minimalquest.com.
Minimalquest.com. For anyone like to join, it's the third Tuesday of every month at 7 o'clock. It is free, and you get the insight of 3 professional organizers on a whole array of topics that deal with minimalism and just generalized organizing and decluttering.
Sign me up. So we came to the end of our show. Need to wrap up, but stay happy. We will be back next week staying with more stuff on how to be happy and how to keep it clean at home. We want to thank our expert panel of organizers. And before we sign off, asking our guests for a gem, a quick tip. Caroline?
Yeah, so my last tip is just to let our listeners know that decision-making is a skill that you can learn. Susan made reference to this earlier about organizing is a skill that you can learn. But it's also decision-making in the brain is like a muscle in the body. If you start small and exercise it frequently and keep going, then if you're struggling with purging, you'll find it'll get easier and easier and easier and easier. The decision-making muscle gets stronger and stronger.
Neuroplasticity.
Label everything. Get yourself a label maker. As soon as you buy a new computer, label the cords, a new printer, label the cords, label your boxes, your bins, everything you have, put a label on it.
Matt?
I'm going to repeat it. Circulation prevents accumulation.
I love it. And mine is hang up your clothes, and we mentioned that before. Use a hamper or get one if you don't have one. We came to the end of the show working on more at Keep It Clean, like tips and tricks to get you started with clutter and cleaning, how to make every day an Earth Day, how to clean less, my very own 7 in 7, and my quick tip for today and every day, shoes off at the door. Bye for now. Oppa.
At Keep It Clean for Happier You, we'd love to hear from you. For your comments and questions, use contact form at dirtdirtgoaway.com or text Nikki, text only, at 203-581-3446. That's 203-581-3446. We will be here every Saturday. Tune in to Keep It Clean for Happier You podcast. You can live stream online at radio1400.am every Saturday afternoon at 1 p.m. and listen anytime at dirtdirtgoaway.com.